Okay, gang, let's talk a little bit about humans and our evolution and where in the classification system and phylogenetics would our species be found. So, humans are a member of the order of primates. This is in the class of mammals. The class Mammalia or order primates. There's many different types of primates, as you can see from this chart. Lemurs, tarsiers, we have monkeys, and we have apes. Now, the anthropoids, so that term probably sounds a little bit like, anthropology, the study of humans and our civilizations. That falls under and contains monkeys and apes. And so that's all of the old world monkeys, the new world monkeys, gibbons, orangutans, gorillas, and chimpanzees. And if you look at this phylogenetic tree, we can see just how closely related we are to each of the groups that were aforementioned, with chimpanzees being the most, our most common, our most closest relative, and with lemurs and some of the other ones in the tarsiers being some of our more distantly related cousins within the order of primates. So, what's the big difference between monkeys and apes then? Well, there's a couple of different ways that they're different. One of the biggest ones is the absence and presence of a tail. So I've linked a nice little video here for you if you want to watch it. It's not very long at all. Matter of fact, you don't even have to watch the whole thing. It's just kind of a funny little way to remember if something is a monkey or if something is an ape. And essentially it focuses on the presence or absence of a tail. So if it doesn't have a tail, it's not a monkey, it's an ape. But there's other ways that monkeys and apes are different from each other. Most monkeys do not have opposable digits on their hands. They actually only have opposable digits on their feet. And opposable digits means you can take your thumb and your forefinger and touch them together. We're pretty ambidextrous. We can do that with all of ours. Not all great apes can do that. Not even all, especially monkeys can't do this at all. But most of the great apes cannot do this as well. But in addition to that, most great apes actually can have opposable thumbs on their feet as well, which is interesting to think about. But a lot of there's other things too. Dealing with the anatomy is brain to body size ratio is another big one. But just know that if it doesn't have a tail, it's not a monkey. It's an ape. So of the great apes, because we don't have tails, so we fall into the great ape category. So here's all of us and our closest relatives that we have on our planet currently. These are all the extant species, meaning the species that are still alive. What would be the difference then between humans and the rest of these? Well, a lot of it comes down to the aforementioned the grip and the opposable thumb. So there's two different types of grips that all primates, we have, and that not all primates have. And that's the difference between what we call a power grip and the difference between a precision grip. So an easy way to think of it is you pick up a beer bottle or a Coke bottle, in your case, you grab it like this, right? And you kind of pull everything together to make a fist, right? All great apes can do that. But what the humans can do that most great apes cannot do is have what's called a precision grip. This is where you touch just the forefinger to your thumb. We can do that with all of our fingers. You can do that as well. This would blow a monkey's mind, and a great ape would probably have trouble doing this, but some of them can do it. So there's a difference between a beer bottle grip and grabbing a wine glass. So precision grip versus the power grip. Another good determination between what makes humans and what makes us hominids and different from the rest of the great apes has to do with brain size versus body ratio. Humans have a large brain size versus body ratio than all of the other great apes. So that's another key characteristic that divides us from a morphological stance. So let's talk about the early humans. So this is going to be the family of hominids. As you can see, that the hominids first showed up about 7 million years ago. And the big distinction is our ability to walk upright. So at least at that time, some early hominids were actually walking upright, even if it wasn't for an extended period of time. At least it was for a longer time than the great apes. One of the genuses that we focus on in human evolution is the genus Australopiths. Australopiths lived in Africa about 3.6 million years ago, And we know they walked upright based off the fossils we found of their footprints from them walking alongside of a muddy riverbank. Um, how do we know they walked upright? Well, from the fossils, from the footprint fossils, we can tell that they walked upright because there are no fossils of knuckle prints in the ground, which you would expect to see if they walked on their hands and feet. But the other big thing is looking at their bone structure and looking at how the bones in the hip joints relate to each other, and the stress and fracture points on those ball and socket joints can tell us whether or not an animal walked bent over or if they walked upright. And in these bones that we find, the most famous one that we found is a specimen named Lucy. And it's, by the way, she's named after the Beatles song "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds." They actually named her after that because that's about the time she was found. We can look at her hip joint and her femur, this ball and socket joint, and we can see from these stress fractures and from the wear and tear that she actually walked upright. It resembles that more closely to modern day humans than it does to animals that walk bent over. So it was this genus, the Australopiths, that led towards the genus Homo, which is the genus that modern day humans are found in. Homo meaning that everything that's in this genus is the same as us, because Homo means same. And just keep in mind, there are many other species, multiple species, and other genuses of hominids, other groups within our family, other genuses in our family, other than just Australopiths and and Homo sapiens, the genus Homo. But all of them have gone extinct. So there are many relatively closely related groups to humans that once inhabited the Earth. Some of them even at the same time as each other, not necessarily at the same time with modern day humans. So let's get into the evolution into modern day humans. So there are 5 main species that were found in the genus Homo. 4 of them have all gone extinct. One of the most notable ones, other than modern humans, was Neanderthals. So Neanderthals are our closest living relative, thought to have gone extinct about 28 million years ago or so. It's thought that two things. One, that they could have been bred out, that humans and Neanderthals are actually closely enough related to produce viable offspring, and that as humans moved into the territory that was held by Neanderthals, that breeding between the 2 species occurred, and this is shown by evidence that's found in our own DNA. I'll get to in just a minute with some of the notes that are on the bottom. But it's important to know that Neanderthals and humans, while related, did not evolve from each other. Humans did not evolve from Neanderthals. Humans and Neanderthals both share a common ancestor, which was Homo erectus. Some members of Homo erectus left and went out of Africa and into Europe and evolved into Neanderthals, whereas some stayed in Africa, and that's where Homo sapiens evolved. Later on, those Homo sapiens left Africa, interacted with Neanderthals, and led to their extinction. So the 2 ways they went extinct was breeding them out. The other way is that we have a larger brain capacity, which leads people to think that maybe humans were a little bit smarter than Neanderthals and could possibly have out-hunted them. With better hunting techniques, we would have been in direct competition with Neanderthals for food, and that our species simply was better at hunting and probably gathering than Neanderthals were in it. And so they got less food, less health, less likely to reproduce and survive, and that, in addition to breeding them out, actually led to their extinction. So if you are not from non-African humans, weird way to say it, but if your ancestors aren't directly from Africa, then you probably have Neanderthal DNA inside of your genome. And there's a great test you can do called 23andMe. There's also one that Ancestry.com does, where you can do a DNA test. You can have analysis done. It's good for many different things. One, identifying health effects that you may be genetically disposed to. And also, it can tell you where your family's from, what area of the world is your lineage. And one of the things that we'll see in pretty much everybody that's not originally from Africa is that our ancestors bred with Neanderthals, because we all have a little bit of Neanderthal DNA inside of us, which is, I think, is cool. So, but you can see from some of the anatomy standpoints, there's some big differences between us. Height, stoutness, robustness of the body, some facial formations, a lower and predominant brow found in Neanderthals. So we were two different species, but still closely enough related to where we could produce viable offspring. So how do we get into modern day humans from Australopiths? So if you look at Australopithecus afarensis, which is the quintessential, it's Lucy essentially, how do we get from her to modern day humans? Well, there wasn't just a direct relation. There were many steps down the way leading to humans, and these are shows some of the other members of our genus. So we have Homo habilis was one of the earliest descendants from Australopiths that can be considered to be in the genus Homo, and Homo habilis means handy man. And while they did still walk some, I don't want to say walk some, but while they did still put a little bit more use into their hands for mobility, they did walk on their knuckles still a little bit. They spent more time crouched down, but they also spent a lot of time working with tools. We have found at excavated sites where we find the remains of Homo habilis, and there are tools around. Now, not like a jackhammer or a drill, but a rudimentary rock and pedestal where they would use to grind up food, or to simply break open a bone to get to the bone marrow. In its direct definition, that is a tool, and they were using tools. So we call them handyman because they were one of the first ones to use tools. Evolving from that was Homo erectus. Now, this was the first member of the genus Homo where they were completely walking upright. Looking at their hand bones and their knuckle bones, there is no sign that they ever really used their hands to help support their weight on the ground, at least not for extended periods of time. And looking at the curvature of the spine and the fractures and stress marks along their ball and socket joints and their hips, we can tell that, hey, these guys walked upright. And this would be advantageous if you're in an area where, like the savannas of Africa, or areas where there's tall grasses. This would give you an advantage to be able to see over the grasses to see if danger is nearby. Also, being taller means long legs, means being able to travel faster and longer distances per stride to help you get across large areas of land, because Africa is actually a very large continent. So Homo erectus means upright man. Then we have Homo neanderthalis, which its meaning is based on where it was found. So Neanderthals were originally discovered in the Neander Valley in Germany, and so they're called Neanderthals, named after the valley that they're in. Neanderthals, again, they evolved from Homo erectus. Some of Homo erectus left Africa and went into Europe and evolved into Homo neanderthals. Some of them stayed back behind. Some of the Homo erectus that stayed in Africa evolved into Homo sapiens in Africa. So we did not evolve from Neanderthals. But Neanderthals and Homo sapiens both share a common ancestor, which is Homo erectus. And then we have Homo sapiens, which is our own species, and we call ourselves wise man. It's a little bit of a tip to hat to ourselves because of our brain size. We think ourselves to be pretty smart, not in a glorified way, but just compared to others. We are pretty good at using tools. We use those tools to manipulate our environment, to build structures, to build things to protect ourselves, and our ability to analyze and break down information from the world around us and use that to help predict an outcome has really led to emphasis on our intelligence being our best strategy for our species to survive. So being able to use tools really, really well, and being smart and making better tools, we've been able to really increase our species' chance of survival. And it works pretty well because there are more humans on this planet than the planet can actually support. So, maybe it worked too well, but, that's up for debate. But yeah, so this is some of the information on humans and our evolution, and hopefully this will help you out a little bit, right?